friends, welcome back. We got another episode of The Players Are Loud, and today we've got Dwayne Holloway with us. Funky D. What's up, man? So good to have you.
Good.
So great to have you with us. Dwayne and I go way back. If I don't know what order you may have seen some of these interviews in before, if you're watching these shows, but Dwayne is part of the Beehive family, and we've interviewed Bill Buchanan and Tom Knight and Dee Rosario, and Dwayne's part of that story, and we've got a rich history together, playing all kinds of gigs. And Dwayne is a drummer that is so versatile. Always been respected. Man, we met back in college. Is that right?
Man, interesting story. Short story, I will say. Man, I heard about you when I first got to Athens, UGA. I went to, I was invited to a frat party that you were playing, but I think it was a last minute thing for you.
Okay.
From what I understood a couple of years later after that. You were playing with a friend of mine, which he was a percussion major at UGA, which later ended up giving me a few lessons, after that, as far as marimba, mallet stuff. Eugene Fambro. But man, a random gig, I saw you guys there, man. And man, I was like, man, who is this guy on bass? I was like, man, random gig, man.
I don't even know that we've ever even had this conversation before, because I feel like I would have remembered that. But did we meet at that gig, or was it later?
Briefly at that gig.
Okay.
But we met way, way later, man, doing the AIM thing.
Yeah, and real quick, so those that aren't aware, AIM, when we talk about AIM, that's the Atlanta Institute of Music.
Right.
And Athens and UGA, Athens, Georgia, I went to school there for 3.5 years, I think, before transferring to Georgia State. You graduated from UGA?
I did, 2001.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Percussion. Yeah.
So back in those days, I don't know how it is now. It's been forever since I've been to Athens, but man, back in the day, the music scene was really robust in Athens. I mean, it was
great, man. Great time, and not down in it, but the whole DJ. A lot of the clubs wanted DJs.
Yeah.
And that's where the live thing kind of died down. There were a few places able to stay open.
Yep.
And to allow the live bands to still come in and do their thing.
Yeah. Because it was a vibrant live music city.
Right.
For a long, long time. Certainly when we were in school there. Speaking of which, tell me if I get this right, but so where I was first hearing of your notoriety was hearing about you in this band called Squat. Everybody was talking about the drummer for Squat was this totally killing player. And Trey Wright. Yes. Trey Wright was the guitar player,
man.
Yeah.
Phenomenal writer as well, man.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
I'm seeming to remember that you all did a lot of. Did you do some traveling, or were you guys mostly just based around Athens?
Man, we did a good bit of traveling, and again, or I should say, mostly around the southeast.
Yeah.
I guess our biggest thing was we were invited through UGA, through our mentor, Steve Dance, head of jazz band at the time at UGA, to the World Sacred Music in India, Bangalore, India, man.
Wow.
we got to hang out, met a lot of musicians from, there, and a lot of musicians that we knew from the States as well that we were surprised they were there as well. But man, the height of that occasion, that trip, man, we got to meet the Dalai Lama. We got to hang out for a little bit, man.
Incredible.
Life experience right there, man. And we were only allowed a few minutes. We each had, a question to ask, and we did that, and everything was fine. And man, the last thing he said to us was, don't let anyone hold you back. Do what you are, or do what you think you're supposed to do in this world.
Yeah.
No matter what comes your way, what the wind blows back at you, keep pushing forward, man. And, that's wow. It was a nice occasion, man. Nice.
So did everybody got to ask him a question?
Everybody got to ask him a question. 5 people were in the band.
Do you remember what you asked him?
What he thought, what his view on the state of the world was at that time. And again, he was like, I can only do what I'm put on this earth to do. I can try to be influence to everyone else around me. Yeah. But maybe that's my purpose. I don't know. But all I can do is do what I'm put on this earth to do. Yeah. This earth to do, sorry. And, as it may be vague, but at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, that's all we can do.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, the Indian music in particular, from a rhythmic perspective,
oh man,
it's very attractive to a lot of rhythm section players because of the intricacy and really the efficiency as well of how it's counted, how those things are internalized.
Count syllables.
Yeah. So I know, I have experience with the tiny, smallest fragment of that. Did you ever dive deep into Indian music or?
Man, I did not. My, I guess, introduction to that was listening to Mahavishnu.
Yeah.
Trilok Gurchu.
Yeah. Trilok. Wow. What a
man.
Virtuoso.
Man. Wow.
My favorite, one of my, desert albums is Desert Island Records is John McLaughlin's K Alegria album. And it's a trio. Majority of the tunes are John McLaughlin, Dominique DiPiazza, one of my favorite brothers of all time, and Trilok Gurchu. And that, boy, I tell you what, that record changed my life. It really did. And not just from a bass playing perspective, but that's when I heard that album. And those of you who've heard Trilok play, you'll understand this. I heard that album. What I was hearing coming from the percussion side of things sounded like a drum kit with a big, huge kick drum. I mean, a big, huge kick drum, all kinds of air being moved, some forward propelling motion, intense stuff. I didn't even know what I was listening to. And then I saw him on a video one time playing, and I'm looking at his kick drum he's hitting with his hand, basically. Right. You know more about it than I do, but I was blown away. Like, oh, those are the instruments that he's playing these sounds on? I had no idea. It was mind-blowing.
And it's not only the sounds. This dude is kneeling, playing an entire drum set or an entire percussion setup.
Yeah.
And it sounds like 3 or 4 people.
It really does. It's amazing.
And it's like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an album that for any music connoisseur, no matter what you're into, boy, that is a, in my personal opinion, like humble opinion, that's a landmark one that people should be exposed to. It's really good.
Right. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Not just from the sound aspect, the writing, the parts that he came up with, or he continues to come up with in the playing. And again, like you were saying, not seeing that, and then to see that,
Yeah,
wow,
it's amazing.
One dude doing all this.
That when I listen to him play, and especially like listening to that album, there's an album that I think is even more famous. It's the McLaughlin's the Live at Royal Festival Hall, which is older than that.
Yeah.
And I believe that's Kai Eckhart on bass, another one of my favorite players. Got a chance to meet him years ago at one of Victor Wooten's bass camps, and he was absolutely great to hang with. But that album is maybe a little bit more famous. There's a different bass player on it, but it's the same kind of vibe. It's the sound of 12 coming from 3, and the dynamic range. It's like, I don't know a better example for dynamics. I mean, things that get from, the quietness of, rubbing your fingers together level of volume to Metallica volume, just constantly sweeping up and down. Some of that stuff is breathtaking, man. It's amazing.
Man.
It's making me want to listen to it right now. It's been a minute. It's great stuff. Shifting gears real quick, your connection to this album, you played on a tune called Without Love, that Dee Rosario, our mate from Beehive, also played on as well. I was telling the story in Dee's interview, sort of behind the song, and there's actually, it's based on a Bible verse and kind of expanding on the concept of this particular Bible verse in 1 Corinthians.
Yeah, I was definitely trying to, and I will say, refresh my memory. That stuff goes, man. I mean, I as far as I'm concerned, my background, pretty much growing up in the church, growing up, doing a weekly Bible study deal. Maybe not so much now, but
yeah,
man. And just looking at your, even your entire list on it is based on some scripture.
Yeah, most of them were inspired by things I had read or was meditating on or contemplating, right. And I really trying to relate it to life today and sort of current events and stuff like that. People will hear it's not it's not a church record or a gospel record by any means, but there are these kind of underlying messages,
right. Yeah.
That, and that's the way I've been moved a lot by people's music before. It's not sometimes especially like with vocal, based music, sometimes what you get out of a song is way deeper, or it's something different from even what might be sung about directly. There may be a way that a song will speak to you, right? You could hear something that catches your attention, that alludes to a past experience that may not have been alluded to for you if you hadn't heard that song. And I'm really hoping that this music, just more than anything else, just connects with people wherever they are. It certainly was an interesting journey for sure, but I'm so honored to have you on it and everybody involved on this record, because this really was an album that I was so fortunate to be able to say that, you know, some of my favorite players in the world have over time become really great friends. And man, what an honor and a blessing that is. But
And that's what music does, man.
Yeah,
Music does.
really does. It can bring people together.
Right. It connects on a totally different level than just people getting together and, you know, talking. You know, you can talk and then you can listen to some music and you can talk about the music and then blah, blah, blah. Wow,
Yeah.
man. It's a different connection. And a lot of people know that. And it's not like I'm saying something crazy or that no one's heard.
Yeah, but what you're saying is it's important and it's deep, because I think sometimes we take it for granted. You know, like we've heard before the statement. It's almost become, you know, cliche. It's like, oh, music is a language. Well, yeah, it is. Let's really dig into what that means. You know, I've some of the most inspirational clinics and presentations I've heard from bass players and guitar players and drummers that I've admired, you know, for years, that have gotten into the topic of communication through music. Those have been some of the most fascinating, you know, discussions everywhere. And I love how music it transcends our spoken language and still communicates in spite of the fact that we might speak different languages.
Right.
And and yeah, I mean, I don't ever want to take that. I don't ever want to take that for granted or forget the reason why people are so attracted to it or so moved by how it can make you cry or laugh or get angry or happy. You know, it's legitimate content. It's what I refer to as like the intangibles or the less tangible aspects of music. It's the actual, those are the parts that are communicating, right? It's such a deep thing. What music connected with you at an early age? I mean, you said you grew up in the church. I'm sure there is an influence there from both culture and genre, from probably what you were hearing. Like when did you really feel like you were connecting with music for the first time?
Or listening to music deal was mostly gospel. And mostly on Sunday, my mom would wake up, turn the radio on, and that's all we would listen to until it was time to go, you know, to church or whatever. And pretty much the entire days after that day, entire week or whatever, Wednesday was choir rehearsal, more gospel. It was not until I got maybe sophomore year, high school, man, I was turned on to jazz band.
Now, real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but were you playing or singing in the church as a kid at all, or were you just attending with your mom?
Playing.
Okay, cool.
I mean, not to be the whole cliche deal, but I started, I guess, 4 or 5. I'm sitting behind the drummer at the time in the church.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm just sitting there, you know, as the years go by, the drummer is like, hey, I'm going to teach you a little something, you know. And maybe a few years later, you can step up, play a couple of tunes here and there. I was like, all right, I don't know. I'm 4, I'm 5, I don't know. And then, man, and I will even go back and say kudos to those guys for saying this kid is, you know, actually paying attention. This kid is interested.
Yeah.
We're not going to, you know, shove him away. We're not going to make him go sit, you know, in the back of the church.
Yeah.
We're going to tag him along. We're going to pull him along, see what happens. And this what happened.
Yeah.
man, kudos to those guys for doing it.
Yeah.
And then later on, again, I guess sophomore, and again, listening to music on the way there, sophomore year, high school, I got turned on a jazz band on bass.
I didn't know that.
Yep, man. I went through a couple of years on bass and jazz band. Loved it, man.
Wow. I bet you were an amazing bass player.
Man, I could play a walk line. That was about it. Did I know what was really going on? No.
Man, when I was in high school, I wasn't in jazz band. I didn't know how to play a walk line. I mean, that to me, I didn't even start to understand that stuff until I had, some more mentorship, from people. But when I was coming up as a player, that was the furthest thing from my awareness, So, I mean, that's one of the regrets I have from high school was that those are super formative years, especially for a musician. You still have enough of attention span if you like something, if you're into something, to kind of sponge it up pretty effectively. And I was a soccer player in high school, and it was kind of one of those things where I loved bass, but bass for me was like the prog rock thing I'm doing after school, right?
Right.
But the jazz, I was envious of the folks that were in jazz. I was secretly envious of them because you could hear from the music that you all were doing that, number one, you were having to learn how to read, which scared the heck out of me because I couldn't read. I had piano lessons for years, since, from like age 8 until 12. And even with all those years at the young age, I was kind of cheating. I'm learning how to read music, but my ear was pretty well developed already, and I leaned on my ear and got lazy. I didn't want to read the music. I just want to learn the stuff,
Right.
So I looked at the jazz band folks as like, oh, these are serious musicians. They're learning. They're getting an education. They're playing these intricate things. And even though big band wasn't my favorite music, I still understood and respected, what y'all were doing in there. So I wish I would have been in there.
Man, I will say it was fun. And I also will say, as far as I was concerned, I think I tried to take the easy way out, or took the easy way out because of coming from the whole church deal. I also did a little bass in church. Coming from that, kind of similar as far as some aspects of jazz bass, big band bass, and gospel music in the church or whatever church you're in.
Yeah.
You're still playing, and again, depending on what type of music you're playing, you're still playing that walk line, that swing, kind of swung deal in both. But yeah, man, I had an advantage, but at the same time, man, I wasn't reading.
Yeah.
Following G. Okay, I know what G is. Okay, this is okay. F. I know what F is.
So did you have notated parts, but you just figured out the roots of the chords and just kind of did your own thing?
Right, and a lot of times there were actually written bass lines in the tunes, in the charts.
Yeah.
But man, I'm just sitting there reading chord progressions. I'm not reading notes. Till later on, when I get a little bit more confidence, like, okay, I can read this now. Yeah.
Were you always a really good reader on the drums?
Yes, only because of marching band. And I know you're asking, well, isn't that different? Yes, it is. but reading marching band stuff from, and I'm talking percussion from mallet
Mm-hmm.
percussion to snare drum to trios when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned into quads and quintuplets, and then tonals, which are bass drums.
Mm.
Man, I went through all of those in high school, whether either concert band, marching band, or whatever. So marching band really kind of allowed me to learn memorization.
Yeah.
Not learn memorization, but do a lot of memorization.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't go out there and read notes on the marching field. Yes, some bands do, but some bands don't. A lot of bands. So just reading just a lot of notes, again, from whatever section I was in, and having to memorize. And I'm not saying like a few notes. I'm saying a lot of notes.
Wow. Yeah.
To be learned. That really helped me a lot. And then getting to drum set, where you're just pretty much, you're stacked on the staff. You're reading maybe a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
Or a couple of beats ahead. That to me was kind of easy. On not on, but for as far as like a slow tempo.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you gave me one something and say, read this, it's like, can you give me a date?
Yeah.
And then we're good.
Yeah, right.
But to go in, man, I've only had one time where I went in and actually had a fun time at sight reading a drum set chart, or just a drum set pattern or whatever. And man, it felt great.
Yeah.
Same time, it was like, okay, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah. I try to impress on players that, ask me about this, or if I have students that are studying. It really is so worth it to get at least a little bit of reading chops happening, because the amount of confidence it gives you is tremendous, because you feel like you're more well-versed in the language that you're communicating with other musicians on a session or on a gig. Even if you don't have to be the greatest reader, if you can read a little bit, most musicians I've found will still put you in the category of a reader,
right?
Which is worth a lot when it comes to reputation and marketability and potential for people to call. If it only, if you work hard enough at it, if you're not good at it, but if you work hard enough at it to get a little of that down, and people put you in their Rolodex as one of the readers,
right?
That is a significant contrast to if someone asks you, "Hey, do you read?" "Oh man, I don't really read, but I can learn it or whatever." So in their mind now they're correct. This is a non-reading musician. There really is such a thing as like that line of delineation between how people perceive you, right? I mean, has that been your experience?
Yeah, I agree with that. But tell me, have you ever really had that moment where you had to go in and really read a chart, like from the time you got there, you didn't see the chart until maybe a few minutes before, or 20 minutes before, maybe heard the chart, but now you have to go in and read it. Has it ever been that really particular point, or that particular time where you had to really do that?
Yeah, like
has it that for me? Meaning, I've always had the chart.
Yeah.
least a day or so, or a few hours or so.
Yeah.
Or
It's a great question. My answer is yes, but I will say it hasn't happened, at least in the circles that I've been involved in my career. It hasn't happened like as often as I might have even imagined. Where it did happen most consistently was when I lived in Atlanta, and when I got into eventually into sessions in Atlanta, I did my session work was comprised more of radio, TV, film than it was album projects and custom projects and masters for records.
mm-hmm.
And it's just it has a lot to do with kind of who I was hanging out with and trying to learn from, and just how it is. It's just who you meet and your network. In those instances, when we were recording bumpers and these composed pieces, for commercials and advertisements and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those most of the time were things that were specifically written out. Now, these were not large pieces of music because a lot of it was, no more than a minute at a time. Some of it, 10 seconds or whatever. But that's where the highest frequency of that spontaneous on the spot reading was.
Oh, okay.
And, fortunately, most of that stuff wasn't, like a Chopin piece or something. It was, it was a little bit more, straight ahead, maybe in a rock style or a pop style or something like that. But that's where most of that occurred. The other thing is that I've had just a handful of gigs where somewhere in the book there were some notated things that had to be dealt with in real time. I'll be honest, I'm a creature of comfort. I don't like the idea of going into something not knowing what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an average reader, but I still like knowing what's coming down the pike, because I don't want to fall short, on a performance for somebody. I don't want to let anybody down.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I'm scared to do a gig. It just means that that's my nature. I'm not going to feel comfortable until I either A, get through it, or B, kind of know ahead of time what's going to be happening.
Yeah, I feel that same way. I also feel if I've had the time to get an audio, or if that audio is available, I feel like I can write out my own little roadmap.
Yeah.
And then when I actually get the chart, either just go by that, or compare what I came up with to that. And if they don't line up, then cool, no big deal. Right. If they do line up, then I'm going with what I wrote down. And then if there are some, parts that I need to be in unison with, or rhythmically unison with, then I, write it in my chart and then go from there.
So it's kind of like a chart shorthand that you're putting together for yourself. Right. So what kind of? Go ahead, sorry.
I don't trust what I've gotten as far as the original, deal. It's just I can probably follow my thing if it's close. Yeah. Again, if it's close.
Right.
I can follow my deal a little bit better, just making sure I'm, hitting those key points.
As a drummer, what will your shorthand notation look like? Like, what kind of things are you putting in there? Because I've got my own version of shorthand too, as a bass player, but I'm sure it's different. What kind of things are you doing?
I mean, I say shorthand, but at the same time, I'm meaning I'm still I'm not writing out you know one measure, 10 measures. I have to do this deal,
Uh-huh.
blah blah blah. 6 measures, 15 measures here. I have to do this, and I'm just hanging out on this groove,
Mm-hmm.
kind of charting out each measure, and then on top of that, again, you know, the horns are doing this here,
Mm.
so they hit this accent, blah blah blah, this accent there with those guys. The bass player is doing this rhythmic thing here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to catch all those notes because it might conflict
Yeah.
in the end. But I want to, accent what he's accenting, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, and actually, on Without Love, there are a couple of things that you were doing. And I think it was a unison thing.
Mm-hmm.
After the chorus, the Without Love,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yep.
um, I was trying to catch the last part of that, but not the entire deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Which was a super awesome approach that you took, because it's there with it rhythmically, but it's not so like in your face, like the other part is da 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 da, da and you're like da 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 da, like
Right.
it's you can definitely overdo it with, not you personally. I mean, like it could be said that one could certainly overdo it with respect to trying to match up, rhythms and things like that, right?
Right, right. And don't get me wrong, when you first sent me that track, I was like, man, listen to all this here. I'm gonna play all these notes, and then my first actual trying to play it was like, oh man, nah. It sounds like I'm just trying to not really keep up, but just trying to play every note.
Mm.
And to me, it's just clutter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the chance for clutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider myself a decent drummer, but at the same time, I'd rather step back, let the music play,
Yeah. Well,
and I'll catch. Here
that's another incredible trait that I believe you have as a drummer, is that you're like that. You're like the 500 horsepower sports car just cruising down the highway at 70 miles per hour. It's like you've got the headroom to get up to 180, but you're comfortably cruising at 70. And if you need to pass someone and get up to like 110, and you're there, and you settle back in your lane, like you play with such a sensitivity to the song. Anyone who knows you're playing as intimately as I do knows what you're capable of doing. But you always default playing for the song. I've never ever done a gig or a rehearsal with you even where it's like, even for a moment, are you just deciding that the song is going to be your playground for a second to see how much you can get away with?
Right.
And I've done rehearsals with players like that before. You've got this incredible sense of what's happening, and let's just distill it down. I mean, it's because you're an incredible listener. You also you're keen enough as a listener to notice that after a run of a couple choruses, if there's something there, to sort of like tip your hat to this and join in on something. That's always been something I've loved about your playing. I mean, you've got incredible chops and endurance, but man, you've always played for the tune, and that's so cool.
That man. and that's, I guess that I will say that's what I've always tried to do, from this point to that point in my playing. Um, but the thing is, to a lot of people, that can be a good thing, looking at it or listening to it. And to a lot of guys or a lot of people, it could be, well, man, he can't really play. He just, which is not a big thing for me. I enjoy playing. I enjoy playing music.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing drums, bass, whatever. But man, it was just funny, the thing you were just saying about the whole notes thing. When I first started in squat, that was me. And although we were trying to do the whole freeform jazz deal, a little bit of fusion, man, for a little bit it worked. For a lot of it, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So I had to learn it was like, man, this is not just me on drums with, 3 guys backing me.
Yeah.
4 guys trying to play, together.
Yeah.
One
That's
tune, one whatever.
Yeah.
So I had to do a little bit of learning.
Yeah. That word you just said, together, is so key. I described I've described myself and others in the past, before learning a little bit more maturity. It's like when I was like that young, excited player that wanted to play the crazy stuff all the time. Yeah, it was more me playing at the same time as the band members, as opposed to me playing with the band members, right? Like it was like somebody started a metronome and I'm kind of like doing my thing, paying attention to the metronome figuratively, and they're playing together, all listening together to the, it's like there's a point at which you have to learn, okay, you're not playing at the same time. You're not playing aligned with the other players. You need to be playing with the other players together, as a collective thing. What an important lesson.
Next person part.
Yeah.
That was another thing that marching band kind of taught me as well. If you think about it, and as basic as lines in the marching band, everyone has to be going at the same, walking at the same or marching at whatever. Straight line, no one can be in front, no one can be whatever. If it's not uniform, it's not straight, then it's not together.
Yeah. What an incredible lesson of discipline.
Man, I learned so much from marching band, man, outside of just learning a bunch of, whatever notes in the drum line. Man, just uniformity, being together, 200 something people playing different parts in their whatever section, but everything coming together.
Yeah.
Everything being one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always tried to take to whatever band I'm trying, or whatever band I'm planning or trying to start or whatever. Like, man, I get it. You're playing your part. You have your part. I have my part. But if you're off in left field and I'm in center field trying to run up this way, then we're not gonna do anything together with each other.
Right. Yeah. So
we're not gonna make it.
Both you and I, obviously, we played in Beehive together during it, during its most active years, in terms of touring and recording and everything. One of the things that you and I have in common is we both came in as players after the very first drummer and bass player.
Mm-hmm.
So, which Tom Knight on drums was the first drummer.
Awesome,
great drummer. We've got an interview with him as well, and Mike Hartnett, amazing young talented bass player. Who now lives in Nashville. And he's
killing it from what I understand.
I hear he's killing it, doing all kinds of things in terms of production. He's also a great guitar player too.
Right.
But I'm curious what your kind of perspective was coming in, because when I first came in, Tom was still there. So I was there before you came in. So, but I had gone through the thing of like, trying to fill the shoes of Mike, and they had recorded an EP already,
right,
and it sounded amazing, and I really had to. It was one of those things, you come into a band situation like that, because it was a band. That's one of the greatest things about it was an actual band. We could each have our own identity. I had to kind of make a decision, like at the beginning, okay, am I coming in like trying to sort of take up where Mike's parts left off? Because it's very much in my nature to want to, before I do anything else, let me learn this player's lines note for note, and let me start with that, because that's what's familiar to people. And that's kind of in my nature. But part of me also kind of wanted to come in and go, okay, I want to come in and just from the get-go have my own voice, as well. And in the end, I kind of sort of did something in between, and I wanted to pay homage to the parts that were there already, but definitely kind of brought my own thing to it. Which ultimately I think is what we were encouraged to do anyways. But I'm curious, like for you, both Tom and Mike had stellar reputations. Like can you kind of recount the story of how you got into Beehive and kind of what your plan was coming in?
Well, I didn't have a plan. Again, I filled in a few classes at AIM, a few reading classes, I believe, and then eventually got more after that.
So you were teaching for another teacher there?
Yes, I was filling in for someone else.
Cool.
I knew of Tom just through his, coming up around Atlanta or whatever. I knew of you just from the whole Athens deal.
Right.
I didn't know D or Bill at that time. I knew Mike. I think he had a hand in saying, this guy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember like where the referrals came from. I couldn't remember if it was me or Mike or Tom or what, but you were in that circle of players already.
Right. We played a few gigs together, which were they were mostly just like a jazz deal, little laid back jazz, little trio, whatever.
Yep.
Again, I think my main deal was Mike Hartnett from Athens. That's where I knew Mike from.
That's right.
And then, first of all, or third of all, I guess I should say, I'm freaking out because I know Tom's drumming at this point, and I'm like, man, I'm coming from doing my little ding, ding, da ding, and doing jazz stuff. You mean to tell me I got to replace this guy playing this hard stuff? And then, man, it just dawned on me. It's like, man, at least 2 or 3 of these guys, get with them, figure out, and as far as what you were saying, as far as trying to play what was already there, that was my thing as well.
Yeah.
It's like I play these tunes my way. It's already on tape.
Yeah.
So it's been played this way, so I need to play it this way. And then live, whatever.
Yeah.
I can still do that and still add, my little deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, my main thing, I was just freaking out. I mean, man, who's going to listen to it now after I played all this stuff for these years? And then I guess him doing Skin Deep for that, which was pretty much, to me, kind of the same.
Yeah, sure.
Same deal. And it's like, man, come on. I can't.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's try it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, after those first few gigs, and I'm going to say, without you knowing it, you kind of took me under your wing and just said, well, man, just do your thing, man.
Yeah.
As long as we're gelling,
man,
bottom line is us gelling.
Man, and it happened naturally, didn't it? I mean, it's clear as day to me, the memory of how quickly, this new rhythm section came together. And, the thing that's so cool about, about musicians that are at a certain level and respect each other. And I know Tom holds you in highest esteem, and, you're saying kind things about his playing. He would say the same thing of you. Always has had tremendous respect for you. You guys are, it's everybody's got their own thing. You guys are not the same player. That's a good thing. Right. And I'm not the same player as Mike was. That's a good thing. Everybody's got their own identity. But it's so cool how, like when you look at that band, how the evolution of it, the sound changed and modified, obviously with the different rhythm section. But man, the spirit and the vibe of it, it was like it was just as strong. It just had a slightly different, had some different spices in. It's like a slightly different flavor, and we we were fortunate that the band was always writing, because it wasn't a thing where we were forever just like learning somebody else's parts. It was a thing from the get-go. There were songs being worked on that we got to be a part of, actually building. And to me, that's one of the coolest legacies of that, when I agree, when I think about what we took from it,
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, man. What we took from him we took it in a sense, but tried to take it really. Man, I still get chills just thinking about it sometimes, man. We didn't do a lot of crazy big gigs, but man, the gigs that we did, man, I mean, we played our hearts out.
We did, man.
And no matter what.
And think about, this, I said this in another interview, I get you all, in these conversations, and of course, there's a history there, and this is not meant to just, take everybody, hey, remember back in the 80s when, we were, we were the coolest kids in school. It's not like trying to relive the past. This is really celebrating the education that came from those experiences. You don't have to be in a marquee arena sellout band to develop as a musician, develop at the highest level with your playing, with your stage presence, your writing quality, and all this stuff. Not everybody's gonna get to that level. It doesn't take anything away from the value of what we were learning in this band and other things that we've done. And that's who we are today. You know, we're a product of our past experiences, past lessons, successes, failures, and everything in between. And I just want to encourage everybody out there. It's like, you know, you may be in a situation that is not, you know, your favorite musically. It may not even be a musical thing. Let's take career or something. You may not be in what you think is the ideal situation, but how you react to your current environment, you know, what kind of attitude do you have? Do you maintain a positive attitude? Do you still try to learn in spite of it not being your dream gig or whatever? Those are the things that continue to build you. So wherever you are, your identity is solid and strong. You've got integrity that comes from a history of proving yourself in all these other situations. It's just, I don't know, the older you get, you appreciate those things more.
You do appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, man. Going back, one thing the last thing I would say about the Beehive thing, I considered from whatever the first unit was to the last unit of Beehive, man, all high-powered players, but not high-powered attitudes.
Yeah.
So meaning, you know, I'm on this level, but I want you to get on this level as well. I'm trying to bring you up to this level.
Right. That's a great point.
I'm not trying to teach you how to play this instrument, but I'm definitely going to let you know what I'm doing. And through that, you know, you can do whatever you do on your instrument.
Right.
That's what I really liked about the band, man. Wow, man. And that's probably been the only band that's been like that for me, man. There's been a lot of bands, even Squat. I would say Squat is probably on that level as far as that's concerned as well. But man, so many other bands that I played in, with the level of talent or knowledge, some players are like, I'm over here, I'm gonna do my thing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, man, then there goes that togetherness we were just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not too long ago.
Right.
So, and man, Beehive was never that way, man. And I loved it, man.
Yeah, man.
It really pulled me into a nice space, man. Really.
Yeah.
Really.
I think everybody, you know, feels the same way. Just, you know, talking about that and just looking at, you know, you got to have, you know, no matter how great you are at what you do, you know, I really feel like you got to have humility to be able to connect with people. You know, even like, you know, there's celebrities and rock stars and people that we can get starstruck around, you know, and feel like, oh, you know, these are almost godlike people, you know, that, you know, you get around them because they represent so much of, you know, what you dream about or what you want to be. But as you know, and you know, as most people are aware, you know, they're still just people, and you're doing someone a disservice when they look up to you so much, and you feel a need to stay on the pedestal to where they have to keep looking up at you all the time. You know,
right.
Figuratively, I think the right thing to do is to, if someone's looking up to you, step off of this pedestal that they've put you on, come get eye level with them, you know, let them know that, you know, we're all the same, you know.
Right. That's how you relate.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't relate. You're considering yourself here and you're looking at someone down here. You can't relate.
Yeah.
But if we go here, then we can relate. We're looking. You know.
It's, you know, I've seen, man, you know, I've seen like famous players and less known players alike make the mistake of shooting themselves in the foot by feeling something along the way, like the process of their development in musicianship, somewhere along the way, something taught them or somebody taught them that you need for people to perceive you as being higher up than maybe even you really are.
Right.
And like you said it perfectly, like to be relatable. Yeah, you might have the respect from someone, but you're never going to relate to them if you're not, speaking to them on the level, being a real person with them. And
Right.
not to beat this into the ground, but I had the opportunity in my lifetime to meet. I'm just very fortunate because I got to meet most of my bass idols, and most of them were incredibly genuine and sincere and really kind. But there were a handful that the experience was not good.
Right.
They were very dismissive and kind of the whole who is this person? I don't have time for this person type of thing. And you never know. You never know where someone is at, if there's somebody that looks up to you or just whatever, it's just watching every move, treating you as like an informal mentor. It may not be a mentor relationship that's formalized, but they may be watching everything you do and learning from it. And if somebody's in a rough place, and you don't know them and you're dismissive to them, we were talking about this the other day. I mean, there might be a kid that really wants to be a musician, but they struggle with some confidence issues.
Mm.
And they're excited to meet you, and they meet you, you're dismissive to them. That may be the moment that hurts them or gets them so self-conscious they decide, oh, I can't do music. I don't have the confidence to do it anymore. And maybe that puts them on a totally different path, whereas maybe if you were just welcoming, and relatable, that gives them enough encouragement to work through their fears and insecurities to actually try it. And even if they don't get as far as they might, think about getting, the path was at least enjoyable maybe it's enjoyable for them to get some fulfillment out of it.
Right.
So important,
It is very important, man. Very important. Man, I hate to go off into another story, man, but
please do.
And I don't know if you even remember this. Years and years ago, you played with Dave Weckl Band in New York.
Yeah, I do remember that.
In the Village.
Yep.
I had the opportunity to come check that show out. Incredible show. Afterwards, and I didn't know this was going to happen until it happened. You guys were, getting done, packing up and all of that stuff. And I come up on stage, saying, just talking to you, man, great show, blah, blah, blah. And out of the blue, you were like, man, we're going to go down to this blah, 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 you should come. I was like, yeah? So here's me walking behind you guys, the primo musicians, man. And we get to I forget the name of the place. It was just a little diner, whatever it was. Man, everyone sits down. I'm the last one coming through the door. Seat right next to Weckl. I get it. And man, for some reason, out of the blue, and we hadn't talked, I introduced myself and sitting down, and he was like, "You seem so nervous around me." I was like, "Because I am." One of the top drummers in the world, me being a drummer myself, I mean, yes, I'm nervous around you. He was like, "Well, you don't need to be." And that's it. And man, the entire night after that, and it's like 2, 3 in the morning. The entire night after that, man, Man, it was a great night, man.
Wow.
I ended up having to leave because I had to take like 2 or 3 trains to get back get back to my apartment. But man, from the get go, man, he noticed that I was like, being a little weird. And he's like, man, stop that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Wow.
Wow. And, just being a drummer he is as well. It's like,
That's a cool story, man.
You're drumming. Cool as hell.
That's awesome.
But,
So cool.
thank you for inviting me to that show.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding?
Inviting me to the after party.
Yeah, man. That's so awesome you were there. Those were some good days, for many reasons.
Man.
So man, what are you up to now? I mean, we talked before we started recording a little bit about just how slow things are, obviously, but what's your outlet, man, while the downtime's happening? How are you spending your time?
Well, again, we talked about my little day gig or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it for now. But playing wise, man,
Just doing a lot of practicing and stuff, or?
Man, I guess that's my playing right now.
Yeah. A lot of people are in like heavy, dedicated practice mode right now. It's really a cool thing.
I was about to say the same. That's not a bad thing at all, because most of the time, the players that are out there playing, they're out there playing. Mm-hmm. They're not, worried about practicing for the most part, because they're continuously gigging. For some, that's their practice time, whatever. But now, man, I think the hardest part is just trying to gauge what you practice or how you practice now.
Yeah.
Are you still going to be that practice room person that you were, a few years or years ago? Or are you just sitting down and just blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Are you trying to work out stuff?
So what kind of stuff are you working on right now?
Man, I and only because of this, the past 4 or 5 years, my thing has been the party band, wedding gigs, private party deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, man, I just sit down and listen and play with a lot of 70s, 80s bands, funk mostly.
Yeah.
Boring, yes. At the same time, man, just sitting there playing that groove for hours and hours, or whatever groove it is, for hours and hours. Kind of fulfilling to me.
Sure, man.
Because years before that, my practice was, I need to learn this solo from this drummer. I need to write the solo out. I need to transcribe this solo so I can learn it, instead of working on boom, pop, boom, whatever.
Yeah.
And I will say it, in certain ways, it kind of hurt. But bringing it around, trying to just, groove with all these 70s, 80s funk band stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of grew up with it, but never really listened to it and tried to groove with it like I am now.
Yeah. That's an endurance builder for sure.
Man.
Not everybody can sit in a groove playing it measure after measure over and over again. I don't care if it's bass, guitar, drums, man, that's a discipline and a skill that it's harder than people think.
Man, you have Sonny Emery on a couple of tracks.
Yeah.
Man, sitting back or just trying to play with some of their live stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing 15, 20-minute tracks and just sitting there playing the same groove. It's like, man, son, I need some water. No, you can't stop, but I'm going to stop for a minute.
Oh, man.
But, man, it's fun, though. It's fun.
Yeah, that's great. So as we draw to a close here, is there can people get in touch with you if they'd like you to play on some tracks? Is that something they can do?
I do have my website, DwayneHolloway.com.
Okay.
Basic. And there's a link on there where you can, all my information's on there to contact.
Okay, cool. That's DwayneAHolloway.com.
DwayneAHolloway.com.
Awesome. Cool. Cool.
But
that's great.
Also, my number is on there as well. My cell number. Feel free to call me. I'm not crazy.
Maybe you're the one. You might have to worry about the crazy people calling you now. So we'll see. But
well, hopefully that'll be a change, and maybe change them.
So you can have an even more exciting 2021.
That's right.
That's so cool, man. Well, anything else? But before we finish, you want to share with anyone? Just in terms
what
of you?
I'd love to share, man, is thank you for, man. I'm honored. Thank you for letting me play on this,
dude.
Man,
honor is all mine, man. What a pleasure to have you on the show, and even more so on the record, man. I couldn't be more thrilled to have you on there. So keep on doing what you're doing, man, and being the inspirational dude you are. And thank you so much for being on this.
Adam Nitti, thank you, sir.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone, for checking this out. Tune in for the next episode, and God bless.